This week on NWP, I'm not even going to do the whole presidential thing because it's just sad now. And welcome to Nerds Without Pants, episode 144. We cover everything while bearing it all. I am Julian, and I'm joined as always by Patrick.
Make nerds great again?
No, stop that. Stop. No. Bad Patrick. And we are joined by a very special guest. You likely know his writing from places like Games for Windows Live, OneUp.com, a little bit of EGM, and elsewhere. You've probably heard his voice on the Geekbox or the Comedy Button. Very happy to welcome Mr. Ryan Scott.
Hello.
Hello. So stoked to have you here. This is a very big treat for me. I've wanted to have you on since I was on the Geekbox last year, but you have a very specific set of skills, Ryan, and so I wanted to make sure that I got you into an episode that's worthy of those skills.
You finally got me.
Yes. We were trying to get you on for our last edition of Chrono Crossing, which was this feature where we were basically choosing our favorite game from each year going backwards in time, because that was inspired by you on the Geekbox, because you have your wonderful lists. And
I have
for
a whole
while
list.
there,
I have those in a text file.
Yes, exactly. And I was like, oh man, that's a really good idea. It'd be really fun for us to go backwards, but only talk about our number one game from each year. And that was a really popular feature for people, so.
How far back did you go? Where did you start?
We started in 2015, and went to 1985.
Okay.
Because we're pretty console-oriented, and so there wasn't really much, I played a little bit of Atari, and our former co-host Angelo did, but not really enough to really say oh, this is my favorite Atari game from 1984. It's just not.
There's no such thing.
I grew up with one kid who had it, but then we just had a pile of games that were there, and we didn't know how to sort through them even, or play most of them, like E.T.
Yeah.
Well,
for all of you new listeners who are here because of Ryan.
All one of you,
yes. No, I'm sure there'll be more than that. We do this episode every year. We try to be a timeless podcast, but this is our one episode of the year where we really take the opportunity to look at the year in the industry, in gaming, trends, things that we liked, things that we didn't like. And it's usually one of our more popular episodes of the year. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and just jump into that. It should be a pretty fun discussion. And Ryan, since you haven't been here before, what I really wanted to start with was kind of your thoughts, not just of the year, but kind of on this generation as a whole. You've covered the industry for a while now, and you're also just very knowledgeable about video games as a whole. How have you found this generation, starting with the PS4?
Wow, that's a very broad question. I don't know. I think this is the generation where technology has sort of reached this critical point where it's this is like the iPhone 8 or whatever of console generations, where it's it's only going to get incrementally better from here every few years. PS4, all the consoles that we have now, when you look back even a generation, they're not the giant leaps forward that we have had. The last time that there was a new console generation. And I think that's going to get even, sadder when the PS5 comes out. We can only go so far.
Right.
Yeah, we've gone from bits to bytes to ray tracing. There's what was that after this? You get more realistic, but after that, there's a point of no return where it's just better stories. But then have we already told all the stories already? And then it's just going to be sequels.
Right. And you see stuff like the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, right? That I think those, like, in the next console generation, you're going to see multiple of those. That's going to be like an annual thing, Yeah, we've just reached that point. And, you've seen, over the last couple generations, these kind of tests with different kinds of, gimmicks, like motion controls or VR. And those haven't ever really caught on as the new thing. Even like VR and AR are kind of still very niche.
Yeah.
So nobody's really figured out a way to go, this is the new big thing that's going to carry us forward to whatever the next generation is. That's what I think.
I definitely see that as a reality too. I mean, I think, and I've said this before, that once we get to that next generation, it's probably going to be a lot more back-end stuff that isn't instantly noticeable when you're looking at a game, but then you start to pay attention to how characters are reacting or things that are going on and realize, oh, okay, yeah, like, there's no way that they could have done this before, but also it doesn't look that much better than what I've played in the past. It's just handling things way better and there's more going on.
Right.
I mean, obviously, the talk of the new generation, I mean, this was the year that really, like, started to come out in a big way. And, if you know your history, I mean, that tracks. Like, if anything, we should have already had, like, a system coming out this year or next year based on the older cycles. But I was really hoping that, with the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation that went on for almost a decade.
That was the longest generation of, since like the NES days.
Yeah.
Right?
And I was hoping that might be a thing going forward, because I don't know about you guys, but, like, Horizon Zero Dawn came out last year and that was like the most beautiful game that I'd ever seen. And then a year later, God of War comes out and that was the most beautiful game that I've ever seen. And then a few months later, Spider-Man came out and that was the most beautiful game that I've ever seen. And at E3, they showed Ghost of Tsushima, and that's the most beautiful game that I'll probably see next year. So I don't think that we've reached that point in this generation where the developers are like hitting up against that limitation that they normally would around this time in the cycle. And so I was kind of bummed when I heard people talking in earnest about, oh yeah, next generation is like imminent. Like it's totally on the way.
But it's not. It's totally not. Like,
you don't think so?
No. We would, like, you have to think when something gets announced, like when the PS5 or whatever gets announced, how long is it going to be after that announcement that it's actually available? We haven't even gotten to the point where they have started saying anything about it. It's like, in earnest, not really. Like, we know they're working on it vaguely, but we've got a lot of time in this generation.
I hope so. I mean, and this is impossible, but let's say that like a new system came out next Christmas, there would still be like a good 2 or 3 solid years in the PS4 and Xbox One. Well, maybe not the Xbox One. We'll get to that in Microsoft, because I almost feel that like Microsoft is treating the Xbox One like the original Xbox, where they're going to be like, okay, let's move on to the next thing. Like, we're done with this. But we'll get to that. Patrick, how about you? Like any changes this year? Any observations you want to make before we jump into like breaking down the big three?
Well, I just feel like games themselves are so devalued now that most of the trends in gaming come from either free-to-play games or games with loot boxes in some way that like make you keep coming back to them. And we're getting more persistence in those video games, especially the ones that people like. They stick around longer because of some sort of microtransaction, and that kind of helps the development community or like the people developing on certain projects, but it hurts maybe some other games or the game industry as a whole. And I'm interested how this shakes out, because people haven't had to, pay for things over and over again or have like big hikes in video game prices. They've been $60 since N64 or when SNES, when they were $60 to $80 even back then. And now there's like more DLC coming out. There's more loot boxes that you have to buy perpetually to get the things you like. And I don't know how long it'll take before that'll take a toll on video gamers or like people who love their favorite game, where they'll be like, I don't know if I could play other games, or if I don't know if I could support this one anymore because I have to keep buying over and over again the same things in hopes that I'll get like that one new item.
Yeah, I think this might have been the year where that started to take its toll on gamers as a whole. Like, you definitely heard like a lot more people really chafing against that. And of course, like, now we've got government entities in various countries like weighing in on if these should even be in the games to begin with, or how they should monetize. But I was also really pleased to see that, you know, like, a lot of like big games that should have sold really well sold really damn well, even with everybody playing Fortnite or Overwatch or, you know, all these like really intense multiplayer games. You still had people putting those down long enough to pick up, you know, your God of Wars or your Spider-Man, maybe not so much Hitman 2. I've played all the way through Hitman 2 since the last time we recorded, and I'm really bummed with like how sparse the leaderboard is, where it's like, oh, I'm like number 4,000 out of only 16,000 on this level. That's really low. Like,
That's for like the later levels that people didn't get through, or?
Yeah, when you get to the later levels. But even like the first level is like, oh, this, and it might be because I'm playing on Xbox. Probably everybody bought it on PS4, so that might have something to do with it.
You know, I looked at the numbers for the top 25 games that sold the most this year, and it seemed like it was about 4 or 5 to 1 that PS4 would outsell Xbox One, like, versus like one port versus another, or FIFA Xbox versus FIFA PlayStation. They were like, FIFA Xbox is at 1.2 million and FIFA PlayStation is like at 5 or more.
Yeah.
And yeah,
that's install base, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Microsoft hasn't released numbers, but, you know, estimates put them at around half of what the PS4's install base is, which we'll get to it. Actually, we'll probably go ahead and lead in, because what we're going to do is we're going to go Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony as far as talking about the big three. And I guess this is as good a place as any to segue into that. But one of the okay, so I have to do like a kind of a mea culpa from last year, because what I said last year about Microsoft was that I felt that the Xbox One was poised to become the PlayStation 3 of this generation, in the sense that it started out at a huge disadvantage and then ended up like making it up on the back end and then becoming very competitive. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. I was really looking to E3 for them to like come out with like a whole bunch of like new game announcements and stuff. And it was like, well, we got studios. We got buttloads of studios now. And it's like, oh, you're just gearing up for next gen. This is a little bit of a wash now, which is, it upsets me.
It seemed like Nintendo, if anything, is more like the PlayStation 3, where it's come back with like a bunch of games and is like hitting at least a lot of new people who came back to video games hearts when they get like these releases that we've seen in the past year or so for Nintendo.
This is the year of Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Like every cool indie game that has come out over the past 5 years is now just on the Switch. You can just play anything. And it's just going to keep going.
It's like they heard, you know, all the fans saying, you know, port it to the Switch, port everything to the Switch, and like, yeah, okay, we'll go ahead and get on that.
Yep.
I play my PlayStation 4 for Sony exclusives. I play my Switch for Nintendo exclusives, and also for handheld, you know, to play games in handheld. I use my Xbox One for everything else. Like, I use it for third-party games. I use it to, you know, do Netflix or any of the movie apps. I just prefer the Xbox as a system overall. Like, I feel the menus are better. Like, the shop is easier to navigate. Although we'll get to that when we get to Sony, because they finally fixed something there. I love that machine. Man, it's great to have hardware, but you need something to play on it. And, you know, the sad fact is that they really don't have a lot exclusively to them. But I will say, but I need to give credit where credit is due, because what they're doing with their backwards compatibility is just phenomenal, because they're putting far more effort into that than anyone would expect. I double dipped on Final Fantasy 13 just because I wanted to see what they had done to that, because if you remember, Final Fantasy 13 on the Xbox 360 looked like crap compared to the PS3 version, because it was like kind of a quick port, you know, like it wasn't, development hadn't started on the 360. It was a PS3 game that they then had to transition over the 360. So a lot of stuff suffered. And then you play it on the Xbox One, and it looks like an HD remaster that you would release on the PS4 or the Xbox One for like a retail copy. But this is just like a $7.99 digital purchase, and I was blown away. Like,
it's too bad that game's horrible.
I mean, yeah, it's still Final Fantasy 13, right? So, I don't hate that game I don't hate that game, but it's also not like, it's far from one that I want to revisit.
Yeah, it only gets good like 30 hours in.
Yeah.
It's a great selling point. Put that on the box.
The tutorial is only 20 hours long. But no, I mean, it looks amazing, and, these older games are running better, and it's this, increasingly large list, so it's like I'll go back to my digital library on Xbox, it's like, oh, they added this, or they added that. And I'm even starting to double dip on some games just because I have like a nice, like 8 terabyte external for my, Xbox One, so now it's just so convenient. Like, and Ryan, I'm a huge physical media guy. Like, I've got this huge game room with like tons of old games and stuff, but, this generation has moved me towards digital, and I'm almost completely digital for the Xbox at this point. It's real nice to just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fire up this Xbox 360 game today because it's right here on my hard drive.
I've tried, I'm that way with the Switch now.
Yeah.
I have like 3 carts, 3 or 4, and I regret ever buying them on cartridges. I just want them all digitally, so if I take my Switch with me, I don't have to think beyond that. It's nice. For that, it's particularly nice.
That's how I am with the Vita, but the thing I was scared about, having had a Vita and like a 128 gigabyte memory card or something like that, is that the Nintendo has like 8 gigabytes or something like that. Like, the Switch has not enough room. I'm scared that I'm going to fill it all up. You can throw
a memory card in it.
Yeah, you just got to get a different one. It's funny, Ryan, because like I should be getting my Switch games digitally because that just makes the most sense because I play that thing exclusively portably, but I really like the cartridges and I really like the cases. They're so cute and I like them on a shelf. So I have like I haven't bought anything digitally on the Switch and it's the stupidest thing.
Well, never too late to start.
Yeah. And part of it is that I've been lazy about like actually shopping for a bigger memory card, for it. But, I didn't really have like a lot more to say, about, I mean, obviously, Patrick, you don't have anything to say about, the Xbox or Microsoft.
There's just not anything to say about it. I mean, in the top 25 games of the year, the only ones that they have that made it, from Xbox 360 were like Far Cry way down the list, FIFA, and like, what, is that it? I think, Black Ops 4, that's it.
Yeah,
are these
those are all
the
third
top
party
selling games? Like
yeah, top 25 based on numbers just this year for like all systems. So,
yeah,
aren't the top 5 all Nintendo?
Actually, the top 2 are both PlayStation. Number 1, the only 2 that have sold over 5 million copies this year are Spider-Man and God of War.
Yeah, but I really did want to give credit where credit's due because I do think that they've done a really good job making the Xbox a very valuable console, even if it doesn't I mean, if you love third-party games, and there's a ton of great third-party games, obviously, so, they play really well there, but then also, like, the Game Pass stuff is really cool, and the backwards compatibility continues to be, like, this really great thing. But also, I wanted to say that they finally added one of the features that I've wanted since I got the Xbox, which is they finally made it to where you can upload, screenshots and video clips to Twitter, because before it was just like, you can share these to your Xbox wall, and it's like nobody cares about your Xbox wall.
Yeah, no one sees that.
Yeah, and the only problem with that is that it's obvious that it was bolted on because it's a very slow interface compared to the PS4 and doesn't work great all the time. But it's still I love sharing screenshots, so I'm glad they finally threw that feature in.
Yeah, that is a great feature on the PlayStation that's been there for a while.
Yeah. I mean, and it's one of those, it's such a great feature that I hope that everybody does that going forward. Cause the Switch has that, I believe.
They have a share button, right?
To share screenshots?
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm one of those weird people that doesn't do anything social on game consoles. I just don't care.
That's the only social thing that I do on my console is share screenshots.
The whole you know, it's like, remember, like with the Wii U, they had their whole stupid little Mii Plaza and everything.
Yeah.
It's like an equivalent set of social features on the Switch. And they have like a dedicated, you know, there's a dedicated screenshot button and everything, and yeah.
Okay, yeah. I just wasn't sure like where it actually gets sent to once you do that, because I haven't done anything like that with my Switch. Moving on, because Ryan, I find it interesting that you said that this is the year of Nintendo, because I feel that there's been a lot of talk lately about them having like a lackluster year, and I disagree with that, because I feel that they've had actually a really, you know, month after month, like just game after game after game coming out, even if they are re-releases and things like that. But also it's hard to compare like one of the biggest launch years in gaming to the follow-up year, right? Because once you've released all of your huge games in one volley, you know, you've got it takes a while to reload that cannon. Well,
I mean, where, like, when you see people saying Nintendo has had a lackluster year, I'm assuming, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it is people who are very hardcore, very passionate, follow video games through and through, and they're like, where are the new games? You have to keep in mind, like, or not you necessarily, but those people have to keep in mind that, you know, there are tons of people out there who never played any of these things on the Wii U. The Wii U is like a non-entity. The Switch, when was it? It was earlier this year that lifetime sales of the Switch had just already, it's way past Wii U already worldwide. Yeah. Right? So, of course, they're like, here, let's re-release Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and New Super Mario Brothers U and Mario Kart 8 and all these things that, you know, by all rights, they're all very good games. It's just nobody owned a Wii U and no one played them. So, for tons of people...
It's funny you'd mention Mario Kart 8 because that's the number 6 game of the whole year, even though it came out last year.
I saw a commercial on TV yesterday. It was a Nintendo 2DS advertisement, and they had like Mario Kart 7 front and center. Right? They can do that.
Yeah, I mean, all of their games are evergreen.
Right, and so those people who complain about that stuff, they're a vocal minority who are just, you know, like day one hardcore people, and that's not Nintendo's, especially Nintendo's audience is far broader than that. Yeah. So they've had a good year.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, cause I keep hearing this report recently about how, Nintendo's console, projections are like, they're below what their projections were. And it's like, right. But you guys got to remember that last year they increased their projections because it had done so well. And they had said like, look, we don't want to assume that this is going to be like a smash hit like the Wii. It could still go either way, but we are more confident in, you know, having a more you know, higher projection. So if it didn't hit that adjusted number, like it still sold like a ton of copies, right? Like they're doing really, really well. So it's like this weird, like, I don't know, it's this weird like doom and gloom thing that people want to do.
I mean, you look, when did Smash Brothers come out? Last week? It's already the fastest selling Smash Brothers game ever made. And that counts like
best
Melee.
I haven't bought a Smash Brothers since the import version of the one on the GameCube. I suck at it, right? Like, but even I've listened to all these podcasts. I've listened to actually you and, Ryan Higgins, from the Geekbox. We've had him on it's funny, we had him on our first episode of the year. So it's a nice Ryan sandwich. It's like nice Geekbox sandwich of
nice Ryan sandwich.
Yes. Ooh. But no, like just listening to you guys and some other podcasts, it's like, oh man, I'm going to end up buying this game, aren't I? Like,
it's a great game.
It looks fantastic.
I was just at a Smash night last night, and we're talking about making it a weekly thing. I mean,
nice.
Everybody likes it. We think it's like the best one since the first one. It like feels just as smooth as, you know, when you first started, and it's got every character you'd ever want and all the smashes, and you know you can.
I don't know. There's no Waluigi. Better than death threats to the producer if you're insane.
What's cool though is like even Bowser Jr., like the other colors are the different Bowsettes, or like the, what do you call it, the army,
the Koopalings. See, you didn't know that because you never played the last one because it was on the Wii U.
Oh yeah. I got
They
the
were in that
3DS
too.
version.
See, nobody played that.
Yeah, I tried the 3DS version. I had it, and people also had it. But then, like, we didn't ever get together and play it. Now people are finally coming back around to local co-op, and that's great for me. I like playing in real life. I hate when, like, even the Smash night the release night, my friends played online instead of playing in real life. But now they're trying to come back and being like, all right, we need to have a night for all of us guys, because this is actually a game you need to play in real life. I'm like, finally, we have 4-player co-op locally again after all these years.
You're total. Well, you haven't bought your Switch yet, but you're totally going to be that person on the rooftop party with your Switch with like the little Joy-Cons, handing them out to the people at the party.
Definitely.
Where can I find groups of attractive millennials to play this?
That's right. Where are they? Well, we are nothing without our listeners, and I wanted to try to weave in some of their comments as we go, and I thought this fits in really well with what we've been talking about just now. This comes to us from Twitter, from Matt Jorgensen, at Metal Matt Returns, and he says that this has been a particularly good year for JRPGs, especially on the Switch and PS4. Consequently, the Switch is my favorite console of all time, followed very closely by the PS4. So, this is where we get into it for me, because I'm at the point with the Switch where I've been with every Nintendo console since the 64, where I'm kind of regretting the purchase. Not that it's not a good system. It's a fantastic system. It's more of, I bought it because I love Nintendo's handhelds, but as a handheld, it runs out of battery so quickly that it's not super usable for that, for my purposes. And then also my big, ham hocks for hands. It's very uncomfortable for me to play it in handheld mode, but I don't want to hook it up to my TV. So it's like, I really love this library. I really love these games. It's a beautiful little system. I'm playing Captain Toad Treasure Tracker before I go to bed, right now, but I've only really played it for maybe a total of 10 hours this entire year compared to the, hundreds of hours that I've played my PS4 and Xbox this year. And so it comes down to did you really need to buy that, Julian? And it's part of me is well, yeah, because you had to play Super Mario Odyssey. But the other part of me is well, you didn't play Galaxy 2 and you're fine. So. Did
you play Super Mario Odyssey?
Oh yeah. I loved it.
That alone is worth purchasing. That is possibly the best game Nintendo's ever made.
It's really fantastic. And with that being a year one game and then thinking of what they can do in year 3 and year 4 and year 5, that's a very exciting proposition. But, I don't know. It's my Wii U gathered dust, I got a lot of play on the GameCube. That was the last one where I was okay, I really put a lot of time into this, but even then when the dust was settled, I was but I did, it didn't get nearly as much playtime as my PS2 did, so. And I keep wondering, is there going to be a Nintendo handheld successor? Because they've still positioned this as their console. No.
Yeah, this is a handheld.
I think this is
the handheld.
In the long term, this is going to be the successor to both.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think that would be smart of them.
It would, yeah. And, I think it just comes down to battery life for me.
Oh, yeah, they'll fix that at some point. They'll just release a new one. Yeah, and so that's what I get for being the early adopter again. Because Octopath Traveler, it's I'm enjoying this. I'm 3 hours in, and then, now the battery's out. And I guess I could, play it just plugged in, but it's not it's this super long cord or anything, so that's not necessarily. I should just man up and hook it up to my TV. You can also get just get a long USB cord.
Oh yeah, I guess you can do it that way.
I have a long USB cable and a charger that I'd carry with me in my bag, and
Yeah, hadn't even thought of that.
If I need to play it in a hotel, then it's fine. I was in a hotel for 2 nights. I spent my nights unlocking characters in Smash Brothers.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's easy.
Yeah,
it's an easy problem to solve.
At my friend's place, like last night, we just unlocked Mewtwo at the end of the night. So that was, less than a week. You get all 72 characters. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I can criticize that game for its unlock logic. It's pretty terrible. But,
that's kind of what I was implying. Do you like it or not?
It's too, like, I talked about this on my podcast this last week, but like, nobody can seem to agree on what the unlock criteria is. On launch night, I read a feature on IGN and a feature on Polygon. It's like, here's how to unlock everything. And they contradicted each other. It's like, no, it's based on button inputs. No, it's based on playtime. No, nobody knows. They're just guessing.
Yeah.
So it's really annoying when, you lock literally 90% of your roster. That's a little excessive.
Yeah.
8 of 74 characters are locked by default. Or unlocked. 8 are unlocked. 8 are available. And it's just, I don't like when characters in fighting games are locked to begin with. I think that's a bad practice. And that's just beyond the pale.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remembered you saying that, and I was thinking that I really loved it in Soul Edge. But then I remembered that, like, the unlockable characters in Soul Edge weren't really, like, main roster characters. They were very much like, oh, here's like a slightly different version of this character, or here's one that's just like a little bit different, and they're not important. You're not going to like main these guys, right? It's just like a fun little thing to unlock in this really fun single player mode. And because that's the way that I was coming at it, and the reason that I'm actually thinking about getting Smash is that I kind of like that idea of like that drip feed of constantly unlocking new things, but I'm also not going to ever get online and play that game. I'd rather, like, I play stuff like Street Fighter online. But Smash is like a whole other ball game that I have no business in. Like, it's just not my scene.
Right. Yeah, it's a very different genre unto its own almost.
Yes. San Andreas says that since it came out, I've spent most of my gaming time on the Switch. Breath of the Wild is probably my favorite game released since the turn of the century, except perhaps for another Zelda game, Twilight Princess. Even though this has been a relatively
wow.
Of all the Zelda games, that's that. Oh God, no.
San Andreas loves his Twilight Princess.
I tried with that game 2 or 3 times, and there's only so far I could get before I was like, I'm done. The characters all look like weird, like, death masks, and I don't know. This is like a weird reactionary kind of. I don't know what. Everybody was like, "Oh, the Wind Waker, it's too cartoony," so they're like, "Okay, we'll show you," and it's just weird.
We'll make it dark. Yeah, and it's a Zelda game, so for me, I passed on it just out of hand. Like, I don't play very many Zelda games. I played A Link Between Worlds and Breath of the Wild, and that's about it since. I played a little bit of Wind Waker, but yeah.
Yeah.
Play
the old ones?
Oh, yeah. But I haven't finished very many of them.
Huh.
Like, I finished Zelda 1 and Link's Awakening, and then nothing until Link Between Worlds.
Not even Link to the Past?
No, I rented A Link to the Past and got stuck, and then had to return the copy. And then many years later, when I was working at my game store, I picked up a used copy that has never been in my Super Nintendo.
Huh. You got stuck? You get stuck in the Ice Palace?
Yes, it was the Ice Palace.
You get stuck with the place with the brick where you have to push. Yeah, I know where you got stuck. Yeah. Everybody gets stuck. Play the Game Boy Advance version. They fixed it.
Oh, really? Okay, so
Yes.
so that is the Link to the Past version of the Water Temple from Ocarina of Time, is what you're telling me.
At 100%.
I shouldn't feel
yes.
bad.
Yes. I know that spot in Water Temple, too.
Yeah. On the other hand, Ryan, I love my Legend of Zelda. It's like the #1 franchise I think that's out there. But I do get stuck too. I got more stuck on like the Game Boy game, Link's Awakening. I felt like it was just kind of hard to see where to go sometimes. Yeah.
Every game has its spot where it's like, oh no, you're just stuck.
So Patrick, like, where are you as far as a Switch purchase? Because you had famously pre-ordered one, and then they lost your pre-order, and you were like, well, I'm just going to wait.
Thanks, Best Buy. I still have not gone back to Best Buy since that day. But
you're holding to your principles.
Yeah, well, now my principle is I'm finally going to wait long enough to get, like, the first remaster of a console. I always get the first one.
Right. You're going to get the one that I want with, like, the like 10-hour battery life.
Yeah.
And, you know, the really comfy Joy-Cons.
I want that. And I want to be able to play at my friends. And I want to be able to play at work with some of the people who bring Switches and stuff. But, like, also I'll just play theirs until that happens. Because I finally want to have, like, the best version of the console, not the beta version.
Yeah. And I think this generation has definitely taught us that, you know, if you don't need to be bleeding edge, it's worth it to wait, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, I wish that I had waited on the Xbox One until the X came out. But of course I had no idea that was going to happen. Like, that's never been a thing before. But now I'm expecting that for the next generation. Just like Ryan said, like, we're going to see more of these system refreshes. And they're not going to be like a thing where, I don't think it's going to be a thing where you need to purchase this or they're like pushing people to. It's going to be like, hey, if you don't have one yet, this is the one to buy, but everything else still works, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts about the big N?
Well, I was going to say, our Hexus on our Discord actually just chimed in. I'm on the Discord right
cool.
now asking people, and our Hexus said, Nintendo is killing it with the Switch, giving great first-party support and oddly dumping money on things people aren't expecting to stand out, but do. With their publishing or even stuff like Joker from Persona 5 being included in Smash. I hope their eShop and online stuff does get fixed and enhanced. Everything about it is completely lacking. So, he definitely just turned on them at the last second. But that, I mean, everybody turns on Nintendo in terms of online support, but...
Well, their handling of, like, their back catalog really needs some work, right? Like, we should finally get to this point where I purchase Punch-Out and then I don't have to purchase Punch-Out again. Right? Like, I've purchased it so many times, guys.
Yeah, that should be... I mean, I like, in theory, the way that the NES for Switch library works, where, you know, you subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online, and this is just something you have access to, which is there, and they keep adding to it. But they need to add more, and more often...
Yep.
And there needs to be ones like that for their other platforms, and those just need to live, like, in perpetuity. Whatever's next, that just needs to keep existing in that way.
Yeah. It's like, I'll give them a pass because they didn't get their act together between, like, the Wii and the Wii U and the 3DS, right? As far as, like, your account. Okay, fine. Like, Nintendo is weird with, like, adopting new technology.
They're
as far
very
as
slow
like,
to get to where, like, the normal is, where everybody else is at.
Exactly.
You know,
but now that we're here and we have this, like, account, yes, like not only do I expect it to go forward into whatever Nintendo does next, but also I'm hoping that they eventually release as much, if not all, of the games that were released on the virtual consoles in the past, right? Like Wii U. I mean, obviously some of those are going to be third party and licensing nightmares. I understand that, but especially the Nintendo first party stuff, like there's no reason for all of that to not be available, you know, on the Switch, and including, cause I mean, they did like some, what was it? GBA games on the 3DS.
But then that ambassador program.
Oh, yeah.
But then you couldn't buy them, and
you
it's
just
like
can't. They're not available anywhere else.
Yeah,
ever. You just can't get WarioWare or whatever on the 3DS if you weren't part of that.
Well, if you buy my console, you can for $1,000.
I think that like those games would be really nice on the Switch, right? Like I wouldn't mind playing Metroid Fusion on the Switch. How about you guys? Like that just seems like a no-brainer to me.
I don't know. Metroid Fusion's a weak one.
Yeah, I was going to say Zero Mission, and then like I had a brain fart right.
Oh, Zero Mission's great.
Yeah.
Or Metroid Prime on the Switch, or, anything.
Yeah.
Other M?
Man, maybe not.
I still want to play other M. Like, I'll just skip the cutscenes, which I never do.
Yeah.
But I remembered playing it at E3 that year and liking what I played of, like, the actual, like, moment-to-moment gameplay.
It's great, except for the story.
Yeah.
Like, I think I reviewed that game when it came out for GameSpy. And I'm sure I was far too kind to it at the time, because everybody's like, oh, it's a Nintendo game.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a weird game. It's a strange game.
Yeah. It's becoming a strange franchise when you think about it. Like, just as far as its chronology and just everything.
Metroid Federation Forces.
That doesn't
we
count.
don't talk about that. That doesn't exist. Well, I guess that saves the biggest for last. We're just rolling right along in this episode. This is like amazing. But, for my part, I really feel that Sony just killed it this year as far as exclusives go, and just unbelievable hit after hit. And like you said, Patrick, like God of War, Spider-Man, two of the top selling games of the year. And that's even more amazing considering that that's an exclusive. So it's not even like available on every console. Obviously it's on the console with the largest install base, but that still doesn't change, that doesn't really take away from the fact that those are some huge numbers for, and also like single player games. Like I really enjoyed this year continuing the trend of last year, because last year was when EA was like, oh, we don't think that single player games, are going to sell. And then 2017 and 2018 said hi. And we're like, no, we really like these single player games that don't have multiplayer and are just like really well made. And
don't even have DLC. Thanks, God of War. Finally, there's a game that comes all together in one from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, and they could have cut some of that. Cut some stuff out of God of War and I would have been happy.
Well, I haven't gotten that far yet. I'm still playing that like every night. That's what I'm falling asleep to, and not because I get like bored or anything, but because I get spent from trying to think about like these battles that I have to go through on hard.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely lost some sleep to that one too. Like, once it started to click with me.
It's pretty addicting.
Yeah. But, Ryan, I take it that you've been mostly on your Switch in this past year.
I would, if I were to, well, I mean, you're also missing one of the main ones, which is the PC. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, we got an
I defer to the
here.
PC Master Race.
Yeah.
I mean, I tend to, if I were to look at my three consoles and what I played on them this year, let me see. The Switch is probably going to have the lion's share of the time.
Right.
But I mean, I played I'm in sort of this weird position. Like, I don't engage with games the way a normal person does, because a lot of times it's like I kind of have to like if something's big, I have to look at it because I need some idea of like, oh, what does this do? What are the important things about this game? But then I have to move on to the next thing.
Right.
I don't know. It's hard to describe. I mean, there are a lot of big games that like I've only played a little bit of. Like God of War is a good example. I played some of that. I was like, I get it. And I moved on.
Yeah. And I think that's totally fine. Like, I definitely have my issues with that game, and I'm sure Patrick and I will discuss it at length when we do our year-in review next month. But
Julian hates children.
Well, I do hate, yeah. So that there's that going against it for sure. But I had enough issues with God of War just mechanically that it's far from, one of my top games of the year. But, at the same time, like I lost like 40 hours to it because, that was the game. And, I mean, I'm kind of the same way, Ryan, not to the degree that you are, but ever since I started working retail in 97 from 2005, I would just like consume, like Tuesday would come with a big game and I would buy that game and I would finish by the following Tuesday and then trade it in towards that. And I just continued on that level of consumption for over a decade. And that's never really slowed down. So it's like, I'm kind of in the same boat where it's like, we actually brought this up recently where I kind of like pick up the big game and sample it and then kind of move on. And then if I really liked it, I'll go back and finish it. Yeah. But I kind of like, especially for the podcast, I want to be able to talk about stuff and, or at least like be in like part of the conversation and not all of them are going to, get completed.
Right. Yeah. I have a pile of things that, I mean, I if I go and just like start listing them, it's probably shameful.
Yeah. I think that's happening with everybody, especially with PS Plus. Like, even though I'm a methodic person when I buy my games, like I buy a couple times a year when there's good deals, and then I play those the whole rest of the year next year, but I'm always still getting stuff with PS Plus or whatever kind of free subscription service I get into.
Just stacking
like,
up and stacking
Bundle.
Up and...
Yeah. And for me, that's almost like what it means to be a gamer this year. That it's like the wealth of abundance, and it's like hard to sift through this haystack of video games where everything's pretty similar at this point.
And I mean, there's things like, well, I mean, this actually touches on something else, which is sort of the kind of, I don't know, overambitious tipping point of the open world game, which I think we have most certainly reached this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are games that I look at and I'm like, oh, I should play this. And just thinking about it is exhausting. Like Red Dead Redemption 2. Yeah. Okay, I played enough where I'm like, okay, I get it. Do I really want to...
Ooh, yeah.
Do I really want to turn that on? I don't know.
Right. Because it's like you put in that good 20 hours or so, but then you know that you've got like another 60 ahead of you.
If at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to move through the world, you have to keep pressing X to go fast. Otherwise, it's like it's literally physically exhausting with your one thumb.
No, you can set autopilot for your horse, and then it'll just crash into a train.
Oh man, I crashed and died on my horse more times in the first 15 minutes of playing that game than in all other games combined for the rest of my gaming existence.
You'll bump into somebody in town, and then the police will shoot to kill.
Yeah.
But like every game is like that. I mean, not every game, but there's so many that are just like, what am I in for here? Like, I know Ashen just came out, which is that kind of like, it was Annapurna Interactive's Dark Souls-ish game.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that and it's like, that looks kind of cool, but how long is that going to take? Or like Monster Hunter.
I have gone to howlongtobeat.com more times this year than any other year. Where
Me
it's like,
too.
Hold on, let me look at this. I'm like, that's 47 minimum. That's daunting. Cause like, I mean, the next big one, cause I keep thinking about it and I'm like, ooh, Dragon Quest 11. And then I'm like,
God.
but I just finished The Witcher 3 and I'm, but it's like, okay, no, I'm going to play Spyro Reignited Trilogy because I can just breeze right through that and I don't even really have to think about it cause it's just like the silliest baby game. It's like the easiest thing that I've played in 15 years.
Man,
but it's kind of what I needed after The Witcher.
I was thinking about that the other night. That's such a beautiful looking game.
It is. It's just, I don't know if you watched South Park, Ryan, but I likened it to the Guitar Hero episode where they were playing Heroin Hero, where it's just where they're just chasing that dragon. Cause it's literally just like, hey, let's go run around with Spyro. And it's really light and pretty and you don't have to think about it. And like, there's no skill required. And it's like, yeah, I kind of like that. That's exactly what Julian needs right now.
It's funny you mentioned South Park right after you mentioned Red Dead Redemption right now, because if anything, State of the Generation, it's something that makes it into South Park, and they had an entire
right.
They had an episode about Red Dead Redemption 2 and like the effects on the family.
Dude, it was the entire season. Like the entire town was playing that damn game.
Yeah.
I mean,
but no. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I was gonna say, just like kind of looking down the list of games that I've written down on a list here, like The one on this list that I've gone through and that's really stuck with me and made me happy was Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, which is
the NES style
the Castlevania 3-esque.
Yeah,
awesome.
Like I want more things like that. Not Red Dead.
So how did you feel about The Messenger? Because that's one where I was disappointed because I wanted to play it on my Xbox, and then it's only on the Switch, and I was like, well, I really want to try that one.
I have not played The Messenger yet. That's one that I have earmarked as like, this is one of my holiday games to play.
Yeah.
Like, The Messenger, Spider-Man, and Call of Cthulhu are going to be like my holiday break games.
Cool.
So,
yeah, Spider-Man here for sure.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is really good.
So I hear.
But yeah, Messenger looks really cool. Because I'm going on a trip next weekend, and so obviously I'm taking the Switch, and I'm working on Captain Toad right now, but it's such a breezy little game that I'm like, I might have this done before my trip. So I was thinking that I might need to pick something else up, and Messenger might fit the bill.
Yeah, I did hope that at least the early levels of Toad would get a little bit harder, but maybe does it get harder later in the game? Because it does get a little bit too much like, yeah, I can kind of figure this out at a glance.
Yeah, I'm only on like level 6 or 7, so I'm not that deep. Does it? Okay. It's really cute. I'm really enjoying that game.
I love Toad. You can't go wrong with him, you know?
Yeah.
Put him in Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
He'll be the Gon of Smash Brothers, like or the Yoda, just the character that like nobody can hit because he's just so tiny.
That'd be awesome. Put Yoda in Smash. Oh my god.
No. I'm liking that they're at least keeping it to video game characters. Like, even if they're branching out to like not Nintendo, like at least they're keeping it within gaming.
Well, I guess
Ralph in Smash.
Yeah. I guess video games
enough.
first, because Yoda's been in games, but
I could see them doing that.
Yeah.
I'm calling it right now. Wreck-It Ralph for one of those character packs.
oh my god, that would open up everything. All Disney characters. We'd have Simba in there.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Ryan Higgins like brought up to you, Ryan, about like what if they put in like a Marvel character or something, like that just opens up like a whole other floodgate.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
It would, yeah, absolutely.
Then again, I don't know. Bayonetta's in it. That's
Yeah, and like good. Bayonetta's mainable.
Oh, Bayonetta was broken, like toxically broken in the last Smash game.
Yeah.
So one thing that I did want to like, because I definitely want to highlight when they fix things that I've been complaining about. And so I will say that this is the year that I upgraded to the PlayStation 4 Pro, and that actually fixed most of my download issues, because any listeners to the show know that my old PS4 would take just an abysmal amount of time to download anything. Like I bought Hellblade the day it came out, and it didn't finish downloading until the following evening. Like, it was a full 24-hour period for that sucker to download.
And I kept defending Sony because I was like, this has to be like a console error. I wasn't getting that.
Was this on Wi-Fi?
This was on Wi-Fi. And honestly, like I think I might have just had a bad system, but the PS4 Pro does allow you to go to the 5G band on your Wi-Fi network, and that made all the difference. Like, now everything downloads lickety split.
Oh shit.
So that's good. And then also they finally got rid of their terrible search feature in the store where you had to select one letter at a time. That's a huge deal to me. Like,
is that gone now?
That's gone.
Huh.
So, well, Justin said that was gone. I'm taking his word for it because I haven't actually checked it myself, but our guest of ours, Justin, who was on a couple episodes ago, said that they took that out. And if they did, more power to him, because that was one of the worst interfaces in any online store I've seen.
Because not only were you searching one letter at a time, but the demo would frequently come up first, and like the game would come after all, like the DLC even. So it was like 15 or 20 down even as you're searching one letter at a time. It was awful.
Yeah.
You gotta buy all the DLC to get to the game.
Right.
Someday.
That's how this works. Buy our battle pass.
let's see. I've been remiss in bringing in comments from the listeners. I'm sorry, guys. Tyrone Swift has one. Well, he had a lot, but one that I really wanted to highlight is, what's the deal with game streaming? Does anyone else think that's going to be a really big deal once the tech gets there? And Ryan, as someone who pays attention to the industry, like, just as far as trends go, do you see that as a thing? I mean, I think that it's an inevitability, like, just because eventually the tech is going to get there. Like
in-house, or are you talking about like streaming, like over a service?
Streaming over a service, you know, like what OnLive was supposed to be, or Gaikai, you know, because Microsoft has made a big deal about that this year, saying that they're really moving towards that, and everybody seems to be trying to crack that nut. And I feel that it's coming, but I feel like it's not coming next generation. I think we're still...
That's like a bandwidth thing more than anything,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, at what point, it's just like, you're not going to stream Red Dead Redemption 2, you're going to hit your data cap in like a day.
Yeah.
You know, like, that. It's just a practical... I don't know, like, that's a weird... Maybe it's like a weird old man thing in me being like, why would I ever use this? But it seems like there's a lot of practical roadblocks to it, and also like it seems like it has limited use for the average person.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that is more of a like infrastructure problem than it is a gaming problem, because there's still so many people in the country that don't have broadband or don't have like high speed internet. So, you know, I mean, they even have trouble just downloading DLC right now or downloading patches, right? So it's a big ask to say like, hey, this system doesn't have a disk drive, and, you know, also you're not actually going to download these games. You're going to stream them, you know, from our service directly. You know, I mean, and I think it's something that will happen, because I think eventually we'll solve those problems as far as, you know, how everybody gets their internet. But I think we're just a really long way away from that.
Yeah. Maybe like, when Google, you know, puts their fiber everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because like I keep moving further away from Google Fiber here in Austin. Like it's always right around the corner, and then I move further away from it.
You just gotta keep outrunning it.
Yeah.
It's like Jason Voorhees. Like, it's almost here. I gotta go.
It's coming.
I mean, I'm in Chicago, and there's a Google headquarters, and we don't even have Google Fiber.
Yeah. So, you know, that's still in its infancy. And...
I think it took a while to get to like the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't make sense, right? Like,
yeah.
Maybe this would be the first place?
Right, yeah, like the Bay Area and Austin are like two of the most wired places in the country, and, you know, but they started in Kansas, right? Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
They just want to say that it works.
Yeah.
Well, one day it's going to catch up to you. You're going to look over your shoulder and it's going to be there, and you're going to be like, no, all of my downloads are fast now.
Blazing fast internet, how will I live?
Bing.
Hellblade downloaded in 5 minutes.
I'm watching 5 YouTube videos at the same time because I can, not because it makes any actual sense.
Ozymandias over here.
So I guess this is the time when we can kind of move into just like kind of closing thoughts type things. And also I kind of want to talk about trends and also like things that we noticed, things that we liked this year overall, and maybe some things that bugged us. There's definitely a thing that bugged me that kind of broke me this year. you know, I definitely think like one of the big trends, which we already mentioned this year, that is becoming an increasing problem is just the bloat in these games where, you know, a lot of these games could be cut by 30% or half and still give you plenty of bang for your buck, plenty of entertainment, wouldn't feel like you were being ripped off at all. But there seems to be this push, and I don't know if it's because they're so worried about people trading in games too early, or it's just like they need to be able to say this, like that it has this many hours of content in order to sell the game. Cause you definitely start to see this sentiment from people where it's like, oh, this game's only 20 hours long. I'm not going to pay $60 for it.
I mean, that's been the case forever.
Yeah. And on the other side, they're like, this game's 100 hours long. I'm not going to pay money for that because I can't play it.
Right. Well, but I think there was a point where there was a time where longer was seen as, you know, it's like a value proposition thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, when we used to, when I was at CTW, we always used to be like, you know, part of our review philosophy, even way back, you know, this was like, I would have been there 2003 to 2009, right? Part of our kind of philosophy thinking about games was number of hours does not equal dollar value.
Right.
You know, and it's that pendulum has swung so far in like the other direction now. Yeah. You know, that it's, what do you do? I don't know. I mean, developers have a lot of anxieties over retention. You know, that's why we see multiplayer modes and everything. That's why everybody wants games as services and loot boxes and all those things that keep their hooks in you. Yeah. But, you know, even with some like Red Dead, you know, even discounting the online, which is, you know, we've all heard the stories about how that's a hot mess. But, you know, like I think it was Mashable that did a feature about a week ago where they were like, there's a big problem with this game because it's too much. There's too much. Yeah. Like, you know, what do you do?
Yeah. I mean, on the same side of things, the last game that Rockstar itself made that was too much is still in the top 25 most sold games this year. Like, Grand Theft Auto 5 is over 10 million copies, and it sold over 1 million copies this year alone.
Which tells them they did something right, continue to do that, but more. Right? That's...
So, like, we're perpetuating it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, though, because I definitely think part of it is retention, Ryan. Like, they want people to continue playing their game. But when you start to look at, like, achievement data or trophy data, you start to see, like, just how few people actually finish most of these games.
Trophy data.
And it's like...
Steam trophy data, that's the secret, backdoor into really understanding game sales numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's like I said with Hitman 2, right? Like, I remember I was actually playing Hitman 2016 like a year ago or so, just like mopping up some achievements on Xbox One, and I beat the next to last level or something, and I got like a super rare achievement just for beating the level, which means that I think it was like fewer than 5% of the overall user base of that game finished that level. And it's not a long game, right? Like, it's only 6 levels.
That just means nobody stuck with it.
Yeah, but I think even like the biggest games, like I would love to see like numbers for God of War or Red Dead Redemption. I should actually look at my trophies.
Yeah, God of War is actually crazy.
What?
Like I was even getting common trophies just last night. Like when I would beat, like I beat a dragon recently, and there was like,
I know exactly where you're at.
Yeah, it was like 62% of people had made it that far, and I was actually surprised. Okay. I was like, "Whoa, this is still a common trophy just for getting somewhere in the late game." Or I guess I'm halfway through the game, or 2/4 or so.
A little more than half, but yeah, but I'm impressed with that.
Yeah, that was like uncommonly high, I thought.
Yeah, well, it's like you were saying, right? Like the platinum for God of War is something like, what, like 12 or 13% or something like that, which is ridiculously high for a platinum.
Yeah.
Like, usually they're nowhere near that number.
Right, and that's because they didn't include like an extra trophy for beating it on hard, I think. Like there's, usually that'll bring it down a lot.
So maybe it's working. You know, maybe they're seeing that with these really large games that people are sticking with them.
Yeah. What kind of trophies were in Hitman that maybe it deterred people? Maybe that was like a whole, like we've been talking about an anxiety thing. When you look at a game, you just get tired.
Well, Hitman, don't you have to you have to complete levels within like certain amounts of time or like without getting spotted, right?
You do, but I'm even talking about just getting the achievement for beating a level for the first time. Like, those are ridiculously low. And I'm starting to think that those games just didn't sell very well. And that's a shame because they're really, really good. Like, Hitman 2 is on my short list for this year. Like, I just thoroughly enjoyed going through that game. And it's because it's one of those games that does not apologize for being a video game. It's like, no, these are just like a collection of mechanics and systems and AI. Go have fun. Go exploit the shit out of this, right? Like, it's all about figuring out how these things interconnect and work and how you can break them. And I like my stealth games where the enemies are really dumb, where it's like you can do things like knock somebody out and then clearly like change clothes. And there's a guy who should be able to see you, but his vision cone is so poor that it doesn't actually count as being spotted. It's like, okay, yeah, that's the type of stealth that I like because I can just really mess with these guys and have a really good time with it.
That reminds me of a series of unfortunate events where like the guy's always disguised, or a lot of like old literature where someone's disguised in like plain wide open and everybody should be able to see them, but it's hilarious. They just have like a pair of glasses on and nobody knows what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, there was a mission where I took the disguise of this barber in Mumbai, and the barber has a painted portrait of himself on his store that is like with this pompadour and these glasses and this big old thick mustache. And then somehow Agent 47, Mr. 6'6", bald white dude is totally passing for this very well-known barber. And it's like, yeah, but it's fun. It's not getting in the way of you just having a good time. Like, you just don't think about it too hard.
Right. Yeah.
It's popcorn. But Ryan, any like things like from this year that really stood out to you? Like, either like big news stories or, trends that you noticed or things that kind of got under your skin?
I have a whole list of things I made here.
Excellent. I was hoping you would bring a list. I expected nothing less.
Blizzard really put their foot in their mouths with BlizzCon, with Diablo 4 and everything. Did you guys follow all of that?
That's the one that broke me.
Yeah. I was happy for that at first. I can't believe people hated that so much.
Well, that's a matter of misunderstanding the audience they were announcing it to. 100%. That's what it was.
See, but don't you think that if they had announced that the week after, that same audience would have been, why didn't you show this at BlizzCon? Because we were there.
I would not advise that kind of timing either.
You think it should have been like far removed, like a good few months?
Well,
would that have been the way to do it?
You have to keep, the people who go to BlizzCon. First off, it's not easy to buy a ticket to BlizzCon. You have to be in that queue the second they launch, and then they're gone in 5 minutes. You have to really be on it. So those are the people who are sitting there. That audience are like the most passionate, the most committed. They are there for this fan convention, for these games that they are super, super passionate about.
Right.
That does not describe in any way the audience for a mobile game.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
Like, there's nothing wrong with a mobile game. That's fine. But that, if Nintendo headlined E3, like their big news that they're like mic drop at the end of the show was Super Mario Run, guys. Right? I mean, that would have been dumb.
Yeah, and that's like if Nintendo ran their own E3 and then that was
right.
the mic drop.
Right. Like Blizzard, whether they realize it or not, and I can't think that they are that dumb that they wouldn't realize it. They've been sort of priming everyone for a Diablo 4 announcement, right? To the point where everybody was expecting, okay, this is where we're going to see them announce this game. And to not only not announce it and then go, we got this cell phone game, is to completely misread that audience's expectations. They either should have had some sort of, even if it was like a non-announcement announcement, I don't know.
Right.
I'd heard there...
Do the Elder Scrolls 6 thing, right? Like say, hey, look, we're doing it. but
have a logo.
It's
I
not
don't
going to
know.
be for a really long time.
But then, like, it gets in your mind, like, oh, this is coming. This is for sure. This is happening. We know for sure. And then later down the line, in the midst of talking about that, you go, we're also going to have a companion game, this cell phone game. And that doesn't hijack the news.
Yeah,
you know?
That'd be like Fallout Shelter or something, like people like that with Fallout 4. Yeah.
I remember I was at, probably not at there, but I remember their press conference at E3 when they announced that, and it was in the midst of talking about Fallout 4. And I remember the energy in the room when we saw that was like, oh, this Fallout Shelter game looks really cool. Mm-hmm. There was no outrage. It's just a matter of timing and how you announce it. And, like, it's weird to see Blizzard being that tone deaf.
Yeah.
Do you think that if they had started, like they said, here's Diablo Immortal, it's a cell phone game, we're going to have more to talk about later, and then also here's a new Overwatch character, and then we're going to end with Warcraft 3 Reforged, would that have been the right way to do it? Like, would that have
I wouldn't have announced the Diablo cell phone game there. I would not have announced that.
Yeah, everything else was like DLC and like just add-ons or remasters, and that was cool. But
the Warcraft 3 remaster news, that was their big. That would have been an appropriate under the circumstances, like the big announcement. That would have made would have had everybody leaving happy, right? Yeah. I mean, people would have still been like, "Oh, no Diablo 4," but it wouldn't have been like outrage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is that the outrage broke me. Because I understand, so Patrick is actually the one who broke the news to me. He texted me and he's like, oh, Diablo Immortal is going to be like the thing that we're going to be playing. And I was like, what's that? And he was like, oh, it's a new mobile game. And I was like, oh, I'm not really jazzed about that, but I'll check it out. But
see, I was just thinking on the other side, like everybody already loves Diablo in the community. Now we're going to reach even more people. Now everybody's going to want to play Diablo. Everybody's going to be doing these loot fests, and it just seems like something that could go viral pretty easily to me. But I think that, yeah, you're right, Ryan. The way that they released it is going to be doomed for them. Like
you have to have a quote unquote real Diablo game to anchor something like that.
Yeah. Here's my thing is that if your complaint is, oh, I don't want this like shitty Diablo mobile game, that I understand that. That's fine. I think it was the whole like outcry of, oh, Diablo is dead as a franchise and like Blizzard, has just completely lost me. And it's like, guys, have you played a bad Blizzard game? And also like, why were you honestly expecting Diablo 4 just in terms of like time between sequels for that company, right? Because Diablo 3 was 2011. I'm not expecting Diablo 4 for another 2 or 3 years at minimum.
Yeah. There's going to be the remaster of the regular Diablo first. That's what one of my other friends was like bummed about. He wasn't bummed that we got a
that's what we
Diablo.
thought their remaster was going to be Diablo 2. I figured.
Yeah, that's probably the number one thing they still got to do, and then maybe announce another Diablo when they announce the remaster,
Yeah.
I mean, Blizzard, they've had, like, I don't really know how to explain it. Like, they've sort of, over the last year and some change, maybe, there's been this sort of weird tone deafness about this and that. Like, there's been a little bit of it with World of Warcraft, how certain aspects of the last expansion were received, and sort of fans feeling like it had not been listened to, although, I don't know, take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
because you had been like, I know you seemed to really enjoy the latest expansion, but a lot of the buzz that I had heard about it was largely negative.
Well, it has to do with specific systems that are, like, do you guys play WoW? I don't want to bore you with WoW.
I'm more of a Hearthstone guy.
Okay.
I've played it, but I still think that it's interesting. I like hearing you talk about it, and like I said, like I got the impression just from listening to the Geekbox that you were a lot more bullish on it than the community as a whole.
Yeah.
Well,
but I also didn't understand where the rift was, if there is one.
Well, a lot of as with anything like this, you always have to remember, like, the people who are doing the most complaining, they're the vocal minority.
Yes.
Right?
It's hard to remember that sometimes.
Yeah,
Right.
because they're so
and that's
vocal.
especially BlizzCon. That is absolutely the vocal minority. Those are the people the few that actually get to go to BlizzCon, right?
Yeah.
That make the effort and pay, those tickets are not cheap. But, like with World of Warcraft, there was one of the systems that they introduced with their new expansion, Battle for Azeroth, are these basically high-end armor pieces that have an assortment of different traits. And the traits are different on each piece of armor, and in any system where you have a selection like that, people are going to figure out, like, okay, these are the best options.
Right.
And they're in a spot where, and this, I'm not like a high-end raider or anything. I don't care to engage with the game that way. So I feel like this doesn't really affect me. But the really hardcore, like mythic raiders and whatnot, it's this thought that, well, we can't really chase the pieces of gear that we want that use this system because it's all randomized. And so we will get something and it won't even be an upgrade. Like, it'll feel like it's worse than what we have. And why did you put the system in the game? It's dumb. It's ruining our play where we feel unrewarded, and so on and so forth.
It sounds like more randomized almost. Like, you have to go through it. It's like a Destiny type thing where you have to go through it 100 times before you maybe get the legendary weapon that you need, or...
It's not quite that random, because there'll be like they're all like specific named pieces of gear with specific named assortments of traits that are, the same across the same piece of gear that is named that. Mm-hmm. But you can't really like target, like if you're like, okay, I want this piece, you can't really target it because of how randomly it will reward that gear in like a mythic dungeon run or whatever. And I mean, there's a bit of entitlement to it, of people being like, we want our stuff, but like Blizzard, the way the extent to which they were sort of shocked by that happening, like, I think if you described this way to anybody, they would be like, okay, well, here's going to be the major problem with that system. Like, they didn't catch that. And they were sort of like, their response, sort of in the beginning was like, oh, please explain more and help us understand this, where it's like, but you should how did you not see this coming?
You're acting more like Activision.
And you have, but I mean, see, this is the conclusion people jump to. That's like, Activision told them to do this. Like, I don't think the dudes in the boardroom at Activision get down into the weeds about how they design their armor drops. I think that's on them. But like, and also, I don't understand how that really gives them any kind of fiscal advantage, which is where the complaints would go. Activision is just doing it to get more money. Like, whatever. But those are like the silly kind of conspiracy theorists. But you would think that they would be kind of more on top of this, and more it's kind of like, let me see. Like, so, like, publishers, in my experience dealing with publishers kind of directly on the inside, there are very few times when they genuinely don't know how people are going to react to what they're putting out. And, like, Blizzard, it seems like they just, like, in this very kind of specific way, this is a great expansion. It's just like, this is the thing that people are latching onto, and they're like, it sucks, it's horrible, expansion's a failure, XYZ, And the unfortunate thing is that this system is so tied into the whole thing that they can't change course with it. They're kind of handcuffed to it now. Yeah. So it's hard to course correct. But it's weird that it got that far. And that they didn't see the problems. And to have a guy on stage at BlizzCon being like, aren't you guys excited? Don't you have phones? Like, are you really are you misreading the reaction to this? Like, this much?
In that guy's defense, though, like, that was such a very knee-jerk.
He was in the moment, right?
Yeah.
But, and he obviously was not prepared for that. So I feel bad for him specifically, but like they should have known, that something like this was going to happen.
Yeah, it was
and
one
it's
of
not
two
like
outcomes.
them as a company.
I guess I have to like walk back some of my rhetoric on this, because when it happened, I was like, it's a mobile game. It's whatever. But also, I mean, I love Diablo 3, but I'm not like a huge Diablo guy.
But you bought how many times you got Diablo 3?
Well, but let me say this. If I thought that Square Enix was about to announce Final Fantasy 16, and then it's just another mobile Final Fantasy game, then I can see it, because I would be very annoyed.
Guys, Final Fantasy,
point.
all the bravest. Get excited.
Yeah. So I needed to look at it from a different angle to really grok that.
It's Final Fantasy Crystals Chronicles anthology.
Yeah. Well, I like this, Ryan. What else do you have? Because these are some really good jumping off points.
I like this list.
I was sad but not shocked to see that Telltale Games completely imploded.
Yeah, I played some of those games, so.
Yeah, that I was there. We're CGW was the magazine that broke the story, the first story on Sam & Max. I got to write that cover story in 2006. That was cool.
Yeah, so it's a special one to you. Like,
kinda.
Yeah.
And it's sad that they that it went the way it did.
I was a little bit surprised in the sense when I started to hear about like how poorly their games were selling, because I was just figuring, these things must be selling like hotcakes because they keep on making all of these deals. So clearly these are still doing really well for them.
Right.
Because, the joke was like, if you have a licensed property, like Telltale's got you covered, right? Like,
but I mean, when you're like, would you like one slice of cake? And you're like, yes. And then you're like, would you like 4,000 slices of cake? And you're like, what? No. I'd better not. That might kill me. That's sort of what Telltale was. That's what they became.
Yeah.
And they were all the same slice of cake.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's all the same flavor.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and those licenses are not cheap.
And I was playing that with, like, people who like the licenses, too. Like, girls that, like, wanted to get into games or something, and they wanted to play, like, a point-and-click adventure. I'd be like, well, Telltale is great. Let's try this one because you like The Walking Dead, and we also wanted to play this type of game. And then they'd be like, but by the third episode or fourth episode, this is boring. This is going on way too long. And, like, even the game itself was just, like, from a non-gamer, they would see how repetitive it would be.
Right. It stretches the definition of what a game is.
Yeah.
And I remember, the first season of Walking Dead was novel, like compared to the kind of some of the games they had made before. Mm-hmm. But then that's just the game they made over and over.
Right.
Yeah. And I do think that they made some nice tweaks to the formula as it went on, but it was still a formula.
Yeah.
And one of the sad things about Telltale is that there's really nothing there, right? Like, they didn't make anything original.
Yeah. Well, Sam & Max, right? Well, almost.
No, Sam & Max wasn't theirs either. So, no one's going to step in and like buy like Telltale's like catalog of games to like re-release them or continue them, other than like, Skybound doing Walking Dead. And that makes sense because it's Kirkman doing, finishing off his thing. But other than that, it's like, what's the point? Like,
I'd arguably say they'd mismanaged a lot of the properties they had too, like especially Fables. Like, I didn't think that most of that should have taken place in a strip club. That's just me, but like, I read the books, so what do I know? And then I heard Batman was really bad too, but after having played Fables, I was like, I'm not gonna ruin Batman for myself.
Batman was pretty weird. The one episode I played, I was like, I don't think I'm going to continue this.
Oh, you got out. You were the smart one, sir, because I played all the way through both of those Batman games and got increasingly angry at what they were doing to the Batman universe.
It was like the Joker is just some weird, like, I don't know, just some weird guy that's like, I hope Harley Quinn likes me.
Oh my god.
And she's like the crime lord of Gotham.
And Bruce Wayne is, like undercover as himself, like being a criminal and doing all of this stuff. And it's like, these supervillains aren't stupid. Like, if they see Bruce Wayne flipping around and shit, they should be able to put two and two together. Like, yeah. I mean, obviously it's a terrible thing that happened to the employees of Telltale, and the way that they were treated really sucks.
Yeah. And like, that studio, there was never a time during their entire history when I would reach out to them for something for one of, Computer Gaming World or EGM or E3 or something, where I didn't get the impression that the whole studio was just like on fire, gun to their head, constantly, day in and day out.
Right.
Like nonstop. Wow. It was always like, episode's done, move to the next one. And then there was never, it was like a perma crunch.
Yeah. Well, I was really shocked to hear that they weren't, because I always thought that it was like, okay, we've got these first 3 episodes done. We're going to release these as we're working on episode 4 and 5. And it's like, oh no, they didn't start on episode 2 until episode 1 was out the door. And so they could like course correct based on, I guess, like player feedback and stuff like that. But
wow,
that is not sustainable. Like anybody can tell you that. You don't have to be an industry insider to know that.
Yeah, you just have to be a person to know.
Yeah, it's like, I'm tired just thinking about that.
And then when people, you saw when like their design director for a long time was Dave Grossman, he was one of the co-designers of like Monkey Island and Day of the Tentacle.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the like kind of LucasArts royalty almost. And when guys like him started leaving is when I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Something's not right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, now they're gone.
And I hate to say this, but I feel like come State of the Generation 2019, I'm going to be saying the same thing about BioWare, and I really hope that's not the case. But
not quite. But I mean, give them till 2022.
I mean, they're a weird like.
I mean, they're not even the same company, right?
Oh,
like,
no. Oh,
all of the big people who were responsible for your favorite BioWare games are largely not there.
Oh no, they're founders, the doctors, they're gone. Like it's
their head writers are gone. Their lead directors are mostly gone.
Right.
So,
and some EA studios have like a weird, like you look at like PopCap, that just got bought and basically disintegrated. Right. It's just nothing now, and that was such a wonderful company, right? Yeah. So,
what happened to him?
I don't know. BioWare, at some point, that name will probably just cease to exist within their like infrastructure, their corporate,
It'll become Bethesda somehow.
I don't know.
Well, I wonder if it's going to be like an actual like we are shutting down BioWare, or if it's like you say, Ryan, where it just sort of like dissolves. Into the EA collective, where it's like, oh, BioWare is still here, but they're now EA Montreal, right?
Right. I think from a PR standpoint, they wouldn't just be like, hey, we're shutting down BioWare. I don't think they would do that.
That would be awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's always sad when the good companies go kaput.
Yeah. So do you have a couple more for us, Ryan? I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm also just having a blast going through these.
Yeah, this has kind of been working.
I mean, look, when I'm just gonna hang up here and go play Dead by Daylight. So it's okay. I'm winding down for the year. I'm trying not to be too busy as we get toward Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what's good here. Well, I mean, Fortnite took over the world this year.
Yeah,
really.
It did.
Yeah.
It was the biggest story of E3. It was every single Sony tweet to be like, check out this on our stage. All the response was, where's our cross-play? That was the number one thing that came out of E3, was people being really mad about the lack of Fortnite cross-play on PS4.
Yeah, and now it's just Sony, like, getting all these people mad at them for not being part of the cross-play, frenzy.
Yeah.
But it's also so weird. And it kind of brings me to kind of what I've been saying for the last couple years, is that I feel like Sony just came out of the gate on fire, right? Like, we have a lower price point.
Yep.
You know, we're not going to do any of this, like online only shit that Microsoft was spouting at the beginning.
Yeah, but
like,
then
you know,
that Sony hubris takes over at some point.
Right.
It's like that little voice that's like, you're gonna have to take a second job to pay for the PS3. It's like that devil again.
It's back.
You know?
Yeah. And so is this what it's going to be? Is that Microsoft and Sony are just going to like trade positions every generation because like one of them does well and then they just like get so inflated?
Are they like Democrats?
Like, oh, we're on top. We don't have to try.
Are they like Democrats and Republicans? Now, I know you didn't want to make this political, but...
Oh, dear.
Because I do feel that like Microsoft is hungry again and like moving into this next generation, like, you know, ready to fight.
But isn't Nintendo even more hungry than either of them? I feel like they've made the biggest strides.
But Nintendo does what Nintendo does. Nintendo doesn't really care about
Nintendo's
what
not
Sony
chasing
and Microsoft
anybody.
are doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works for
them. But I thought they were complacent
So-
recently, and it just feels like in the last 2 years, definitely, that they've been more hungry than Nintendo usually is. I guess I would only compare them to themselves, but...
I think it's a point of pride about how poorly the Wii U did. That was more of like, oh, this was a blunder on our part. We need to correct that. But I don't think that has anything to do with anything else going on in the industry. That's more of Nintendo correcting themselves.
I mean, now that we're firmly out of the Wii U era, I'm gonna entrench my opinion that the Wii U was a demo or like a mock-up of what they wanted the Switch to be. Like, it was really similar, but the worst technology that they could possibly get away with and still release something.
I would agree. I would agree that there were forces inside of Nintendo being like, you've got to release a new console. Where are we at with this thing?
Yeah. It's like, well, we've got this tablet.
Right.
but...
And it very much now, you know, in hindsight, it seems like it's exactly that.
Yeah.
You know?
And also, like, from day one, I've always said the messaging for the Wii U was poor. Like, calling it Wii U confused a lot of people.
Oh, I remember when they announced it at their press conference at E3, and we walked out being like, we don't know what this is. Is this a controller? Yeah. Is this a new system? Is this... They weren't clear about this.
Did they know?
So, and you know, and the audience for Wii was like, Grandma, she wants to play Wii bowling or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And, I mean, she's just going to look at that and be like, oh, the Wii, I already have this. That's exactly what happened. So...
At that E3, I was at work and I didn't have internet connection, and I asked my friend to tell me of any of the big things about Nintendo's console at their thing. And so she texted me and she's like, it's called the Wii U. And my literal response was, shut the fuck up. Like, that's not real.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I bet you there are still people in this world who you'll be like, oh, hey, do you have the Wii U? And they're like, oh, that's like the PS4
with
Pro, but for the Wii, right? I don't need that.
Yeah.
I played 2 SpongeBob games on a modded Wii U, so I know that Spyro Ignited is not going to be the worst game I've played in the last 5 years.
Yeah, so, Nintendo's done a lot of good course correcting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
So,
what else do I have here? I mean, over in PC land,
how's Star Citizen?
That game doesn't exist. It's never going to exist. It's, you know,
it's in
it's not
perpetuity,
real.
just like
people
about to happen.
Put like $700 billion into Chris Roberts' bank account, and it's just no.
Yeah,
I've been telling my friends for like the last 3 years, oh yeah, I'll buy a PC when Star Citizen comes out, and it's great because I can't afford a PC right now. But like
that game, the people who are still like, oh, Star Citizen, like it's not coming out, and if it does, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. I'm surprised. Maybe I haven't been following it very closely, but I feel like it has gotten just every pass like possible where people aren't really holding it to the fire the way that other games would in that same situation. Or maybe I'm just not seeing those stories come out.
I mean, like, it's one of those cases where, do you guys remember Brad McQuaid from EverQuest? Do you know you know him? He was EverQuest's like lead designer, right?
Okay.
And he went on to found a company. What was it called? I forget the name of the developer, but he did another MMO called Vanguard, Saga of Heroes. And there was every sign during that game's development that like, this is a train wreck. Like this is gonna crash into the iceberg, right? And everybody, the audience for that game was like in this bubble of like, oh, it's Brad McQuaid from EverQuest. He can do no wrong. Oh, this is going to be the greatest. And it feels like that with Chris Roberts and Star Citizen. Like, he has all this goodwill from people who remember Wing Commander. And it's just gonna, like, there was a huge expose that, like, Kotaku did on that company a while back, where it's just like, everything here is a disaster, and none of this is real, and they've spent all the money, and it's all going to crash and burn. And, there's just so many people who don't want to believe it, because, how it's Chris Roberts. So...
It's a cool idea. I don't know.
Sure.
I have to say that I'm in the same boat when it comes to Koji Igarashi, because I keep hearing all of these stories about Bloodstained, but I still believe. I'm like, it's going to come out. It's going to be great.
There was a playable demo of Bloodstained at E3. I can see. I played that game. I can describe how it works and how it will function. Star Citizen is like, there's this ship demo.
Yeah, you got a hangar.
In and walk in your ship. Like, it's nothing.
Yeah,
but you can pay money for another ship.
Yeah, I paid $7,000 for this ship. Like, no, you just gave your money away.
I thought that was for all the ships. What?
Whatever.
No, they're.
No, I know. It's not.
Oh, okay.
I was like, pretending.
If you are listening to this podcast and you are some weird like Star Citizen truther, like, just stop what you're doing. Just go buy Elite Dangerous. It's the closest you're gonna get. Okay, give up on this weird dream.
But you were making a point about PC language.
What I was gonna say is that we're starting to kind of see the rise of the Steam competitors finally.
Yeah,
like GOG, or what do you think?
Yeah, like as a PC gamer, like where do you land on that?
As a consumer, I don't like when things are different. I just want everything to be on Steam because it's convenient. Just like I want everything to be on Netflix and everybody else to stop reinventing the wheel and use the good wheel that works. But obviously, I mean, developers have some issues with Steam and the cut that Valve takes and their weird customer service or lack thereof and so on and so forth. But it's interesting to see some of these exclusive games on like the Discord store, which is a strange combination of words I never thought I would hear myself say.
Actually, I didn't even know there was a Discord store for shit.
Yeah?
Yeah, they did that a few months ago.
Yeah, and I'm on Discord right now.
Right, yeah, there's a whole store tab.
Oh, shit.
And then, the Epic Games store, right?
And Epic Games Store, they seem like they want it. Like, they're coming out swinging pretty hard.
Yeah.
From what I can see. Now, I will say, like, obviously I'm not as big a PC gamer as you, Ryan, but I do dabble. The thing that would really intrigue me most about the Epic Games Store is if they said across the board, these are going to be a very curated selection of games. Like, we're not going to just let anybody publish anything on here the way that Steam has become, where it's just like really hard to sift through, all of the crap to get to the really good stuff. But it sounds like they're going to do that for maybe a couple months and then
they're going to be like, we like money.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Who knows? Yeah. Like, between the two, like, the Discord store seems like it has the most potential to me just because Discord as a platform is something that has its hooks in a lot of people more and more. I mean, the functionality of it is kind of a train wreck.
Right.
It's hard to get an invite to like your own store. What were you going to say?
Well, but like you said, Patrick, you're on Discord right now, so it's like you're literally like going to go browse that store. You know, like it's already there.
Yeah. And also, like, my friends went through a lot of hoops just to make our own Discord channel. I'm like, I don't know what we would do this for, and I don't know why we did this, but we did. We're here.
No, Discord's good.
Yeah, I like especially the theme, the colors that they choose, and how easy it is once you're in to like add new channels and stuff like that. It's similar to Slack in a lot of ways, but I like their
it's
UI better.
It's Slack for gamers.
Right.
That's exactly what it is. But like there's this game called Last Year the Nightmare, which is like a Dead by Daylight, like a one versus many game.
Mm-hmm.
That they had a closed beta for one weekend in November that I participated in. And it was my first experience with a game on the Discord store, because it's like a Discord first game, right? Okay. And like the voice chat was through Discord, but like your voice is coming through in the game and on the Discord channel at the same time. And so like everybody had to like go to a separate Discord channel to get it to like not echo. So there's little things like that where it's like, the hell?
Yeah, that's been a problem for my gaming in the last year too. Like, just because like the friends that I was telling you about, like they're also, you know, my text message friends, and like we have our own games that we play. But since Destiny and before that, we were playing games that we would always natively use like whatever system for audio that they wanted, but in a funny turn of events, similar to what Nintendo is trying to do, we're doing what Discord wants us to do, and like downloading a whole nother, you know, app and like trying to make it work in a better way. But yeah, we're getting that echo all the time, and it sucks.
Oh, well.
See, I am the old man with Discord where I just don't get it. I thought that the whole point of Discord was that it does all of the game, like all of your online like multiplayer audio through Discord, and like cuts off the game version so that you're just using Discord for communication.
I think that might be the idea for when these games function correctly in the Discord store.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know we've like with Overwatch, we'll use it and we'll be like, oh, are we using Discord or are we using Team Chat in Overwatch? Like these randos on our team don't have our Discord server, so we need to use the, you know, it's like, it's never... It's not like easy either way.
Ooh, I want to hear the state of Overwatch, Ryan. I had to get rid of it. I got so addicted, but you don't know.
You know, I haven't really played very heavily.
Since the new characters.
What was their last character? What did they release?
The hamster is the last one that I remember, because I don't know if the one that was revealed at BlizzCon is actually out.
I don't think they released that, but it's basically female McCree now.
Yeah.
Kinda.
The hamster almost got me back in, because he was just flipping adorable.
And Ygritte was another big one, right? Recently.
Yeah. Yeah, she was the one before Wrecking Ball, the hamster, yeah. I haven't really played that much since around when she was launched, maybe before. Okay. But it's Overwatch. Yeah. I'm a Mercy main, and I don't like what they've done to that character.
Oh yeah.
So
I pick like what I need to when I've seen everybody else picking, so most of the time I am either Mercy or Lucio. Oh,
you're that guy.
Yeah.
We appreciate you, that guy.
I am that guy, and no one appreciates me.
Well, I play support. Nobody appreciates that either.
Yeah, especially if you go to it first. Like, that's even more commendable than, like, waiting, because 90% of the time when you wait, you're going to have to do that or be
Insta-lock Mercy. Boom.
Yeah.
But then, you know, she has, like, a resurrect that doesn't work, so why? It's pretty much the state of that character, unless they've changed her, and I what I'm saying is wrong.
They do seem to be pretty, well, I don't know, maybe they've changed in the last year, Ryan, based on what you were saying earlier about Blizzard, but I've always, like, seen them to be pretty open to what the community is, like, requesting and tweaking the characters appropriately, so maybe they have heard the complaints about that, and maybe if it hasn't been fixed already, like, maybe it's in the works.
I thought they gave her a second ult recently.
They did, but, like, that character, like, her resurrect it's to the point where you can't even use it. Like you have to be. It's only like, one character resurrect, right?
Oh yeah, it used to be like 4 or 5.
Basically right on top of them, and it takes like 2 seconds to do the animation, and it's like a dude just died, which means there's somebody right there who killed him. Which means if you're standing right there for 2 seconds, you're dead. Why does this exist?
Yeah, in some ways, it used to be overpowered, where you get almost the entire team when you would res them, but.
Right, it was, which is why they were like, we need to change this because Mercy's pick rate is through the roof.
Right.
Like,
they just went too far the other direction.
And so it's like, well, it's a weird problem. Like, how do you solve it?
Yeah, they did the opposite with Symmetra, where they made another, like, more attack-focused ult for her, but, yeah, it was not,
right.
It didn't work really either. I don't know. It's hard for support. No one wants to pick support.
Well, Symmetra is not support anymore. She is, she's a different class of character. She's like a defense character now.
Oh, right. Yeah, they changed
they class them like
3.
attack, defense, and support now.
Mm-hmm.
Or the attack, tank, or whatever. Yeah, attack, defense. I think support, because all the tanks are like defense now, and then and there's just attack characters and support.
Yeah, and maybe they were trying to make things too complicated, I guess, and they made it simpler now, but yeah.
I gotta fire that game up because I haven't played it in like 2 years, so I need to like fire it up just to see like how ridiculous it is now as far as like
Get some of those holiday skins.
Yeah. Oh, I love the holiday skins I got, but I couldn't keep up with it. That was one of the big things, and a big trend in gaming is like, when can you get those exclusive skins? I don't know, maybe never. Maybe they'll release them next year during that holiday, but otherwise,
they do.
I need to play that game now.
They'll introduce skins, and then the next holiday, if you want to buy them with currency, like the Christmas skins that they released this year, will be available again next year, but cheaper.
Yeah. I kind of like that, and then in other ways, I'm like, I wish that what I work for was more exclusive at the same time.
Well, for a year, maybe. You got to keep playing, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only so much time. Give me more time.
I used to, when League of Legends first launched, I used to be like, I need the skins, and then it just went completely bananas, and I couldn't.
Yeah.
Game went crazy.
Yeah.
I've listeners that know I've been playing Marvel Strike Force on my phone a lot this year, but it's starting to get to that tipping point where there are so many characters and they need so many resources to level up that I can't keep up with it. So it's either like focus on this one team and don't do anything else, or just like grind. And,
also, now that you've seen the Green Goblin skin, I think that might do you in for good.
Oh, he looks so bad. It is the worst Green Goblin design I have ever seen.
Is it green?
He's green,
right. Mostly.
But imagine combining the weird reptilian version from the Ultimate Universe, but he still has the Green Goblin cap from like the standard. It's a weird mishmash of Green Goblin designs. It's bad.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool. That's what I always wanted.
Yeah.
Look for bad stuff.
Well, that's pretty much all I got. I have a look at all these Neo Geo games on the Switch note. They have almost 100 games on there.
Do they really?
The Arcade Classics Archive Neo Geo library. They're up to like 99 games, I think.
That is something that, again, our friend Matt Jorgensen, it was a follow-up comment that he said that he loves all the retro collections that are coming out and he needs more of them. And I've got to agree with that. Like they're doing some wonderful stuff with that. Like I loved my Capcom beat 'em up bundle this year. That new Sega arcade, that Sega Genesis collection is really solid. I need to get that SNK collection that Frank Cifaldi worked on that just came out, where it's the like Neo Geo SNK games, but that collection.
Oh boy, Akari Warriors.
Yeah, man. And putting in like the console versions and the arcade versions and just the whole way they did the presentation on that is stellar. And I'm just amazed at all the work that went into that. I just need to pick it up on principle. Even if they aren't games that I'm super nostalgic for. It just seems like a really wonderful archive of, a very specific place in gaming history.
Yeah.
Julian, I really want to ask Ryan that question that I was texting you about like a couple of weeks ago, with if you had I got to do it right now. I got to ask him.
Okay, because I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay. If you released a retro console with like a bunch of like emulation games today, but you also had your own game that would release with it, like what proprietary game would you put out, like with the USB, with the, like Super Nintendo Classic or something like that? What retro game would you come out with to get today that hasn't come out but should?
Like what game that already exists, or what do you mean?
Like what would your new game be? Like what would your flagship title be that you added into?
If you could make a new retro game,
like a spiritual successor, kind of like a Shovel Knight kind of thing.
Yeah. You would add Shovel Knight into the 30 other games or something that you would pick on a USB that would emulate all together at once. But like what's missing from those days that we haven't covered? That It's tough. You can't really do that right away. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but
you know what game what game I really love that there hasn't been a really kind of modernized take on is Solomon's Key. Do you know Solomon's Key? It's kind of a weird one.
Isn't it an isometric?
No.
Okay, no. I always get it confused with Solstice.
No. Oh, okay. Well, fair enough. Solomon's Key is a game that was made by Tecmo. That, Tecmo? Yeah. It was an arcade game, and then it was an NES game, which is that the NES game is by far the more well-known one, where it's, it's like you're in, there are 50 levels, they're all single-screen kind of puzzle rooms, where you have to get to the key, get into the door, and you have this wand that can make and make and destroy bricks, and you have to sort of, you take one hit and you die, and you have to use this power to sort of navigate around the room, and you have to play it. It's on the if you have a Switch, it's on Nintendo Switch, the NES Switch online app. It's
cool, yeah.
Like the closest thing that we've had to it that I'm like, this is a good kind of, this scratches a similar itch, is Mario versus Donkey Kong.
Okay.
If you like Mario versus Donkey Kong, it's sort of in that vein.
I like that game.
In terms of its puzzliness. That's my weird, maybe not an exciting answer, but that's one of those things that I'm like,
randomly being on the spot, that was awesome.
It's a cool mechanic that I think that you could do a lot of interesting things with today, right? Like with more horsepower and like being able to create more bricks or have more objects on the screen at a time.
Bigger levels,
could do a lot of cool things
like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That
I think that's really nifty.
That'd be cool. Or a new DuckTales. They can make a new DuckTales. There, boom, DuckTales 3.
I think in general, like the one screen games, or at least maps that are only on one screen, we haven't really hit all the limits of where we could be, because that was like the beginning. But then people were like, "Oh, quickly we could side scroll," and I think almost all of gaming has been that. And we should maybe focus more on what could limit us, but also bring out better mechanics.
Yeah. Locked room games like that are, they're neat.
Yeah. Although I will agree with you, Ryan, that, a new DuckTales based on the new cartoon designs, I'd be all for that.
Oh, I love the new DuckTales.
There's a guy on YouTube
fantastic.
who did a 16-bit kind of DuckTales title screen using, kind of his pixel art of character designs from the new cartoon and a song and everything. Like a 16-bit version of the theme song is super cool. That I wish this is real.
Woo!
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
Love DuckTales.
Me too. I've only seen the pilot, the 2-parter.
Right.
The new series?
But I think it's on. Oh, the new series.
The new series is lovely.
That's amazing.
Yes, I freaking loved it. So I think it's on DVD now. So I need to pick that up.
It took a while.
I want to just binge
on
it.
Xfinity, they only had those first 2 episodes for the first few months or something, and I kept looking, but I have to go back and see more.
That whole series is You'll just get me off on a tangent here, but that I am a big fan of the Carl Barks Uncle Scrooge comics, and if you know those at all, the people who make that show are fans of Carl Barks.
I downloaded an illegal copy of all of them.
Nerds Without Pants does not condone downloading illegal comics.
And this is also not factually correct, so that you can't, I don't know, put me in jail. Yeah, I love the.
Well, that's probably as good a place as any.
Don't put me in jail.
The comic police are coming for you.
No.
Ryan Higgins is listening to this episode and just shaking his
Damn
fist.
it! I knew talking with the
found
faction
the
of
Beagle
Ryan.
Boys. We're gonna get them.
Well, Ryan, before we wrap up, again, just thanks a lot for being on this show. It was a lot of fun.
No problem.
Really great to have you. Obviously, this is sort of like the podcasting, off season where everybody's wrapping up. This is actually our last episode that we're recording, for the year. Patrick and I will not be sitting pantsless in a room, recording until sometime next month.
Yeah, but we will be pantsless.
We will be pantsless, but I figure you're in the same boat. But is there anything you have coming up on the Geekbox or Comedy Button that you wanted to talk about, or anything you wanted people to look out for?
Oh geez, no. I mean, when's this going up? What date?
This will be out. Hold on, the 19th.
The 19th. Okay. Well, in that case, if you want to listen to the Geekbox, which you can find at www.geekbox.net or all the usual podcast places, we are taking Christmas week off, but I think we'll be back for the following week, because we record on Mondays, and New Year's Eve is Monday, and we're both very boring people, me and my friend Ryan Higgins, so we'll be recording an episode.
Nice.
So
excellent.
Yeah, but you can listen to that. You can listen to the Comedy Button over at comedybutton.com, where I play a cartoon version of myself. Yeah, that's what I do.
Well, before we sign off, though, is there any number one game or a few selections of games this year that meant more to you than anything else?
Well, there was Bloodstained. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon was really good.
Yeah.
I'm liking Smash Brothers so far, although I have not jumped online yet. I hear that's kind of a disaster right now, so my mind might change. And, I don't know. It's not really germane to 2018, but like I said, Dead by Daylight I've been playing a lot of. If you like grinding, you'll like that a lot. It'll be your favorite game.
Right up Julian's alley.
Because it hides the fun behind a lot of grinding, but it's really fun once you get there.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 13, it gets good after 30 hours. Dead by Daylight.
Hashtag callbacks.
Yeah. There you go. I haven't started doing my, because we do a, best of last year episode of the Geekbox early in January usually. And I haven't kind of gone through and really thought that through yet.
Yeah, I need that time too.
Yeah, but
there's so many good games.
Yeah. And like I said, there's just stuff like I want to play Call of Cthulhu, I want to play The Messenger, Spider-Man's a big one.
Yeah.
I just haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, that's why we take this break. We typically are gone from recording for about a good 4 or 5 weeks to help us get caught up on any things we wanted to play before we really dive into recapping the year.
Yeah, we're gone because we're playing. Yeah, we do it for them.
Yeah. Yeah, we do it for them and not because I really want to play Spyro Reignited Trilogy and Hitman 2. I will also, just because I know we've probably got a lot of people new here, if you enjoyed what you heard tonight, I highly recommend going back. Yeah, all two of you. We got an extra one. I highly recommend going back and listening to any of our back catalog. Like I said, we try to keep this show pretty timeless. They tend to hold up as far as what my listeners tell us.
I think we made an episode or 4 before this. episode or two.
Yeah. We've been going for 6 years, so there's a lot back there. If you liked that, please consider subscribing and maybe sharing the show with your friends. And also, we're a much smaller show than the Geekbox or the Comedy Button, so every single review on iTunes helps big time for a little show like us. So we very much appreciate that. Oh, and then also just like a little bit of housekeeping. So obviously this is our last recorded episode for the year. We are going to have our music episode special coming out before the end of the year.
You like that. You like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always a really popular one with the listeners. We're going to, probably have like another little special before, like between, like during the break. I'm not sure yet. Then when we come back from break, we'll be doing our year-end review. And then after that, we'll be coming back to our regular format. So if you've never listened to Nerds Without Pants before, we do, well, so currently 2 segments, but we're going to be adding a third again. So the first segment is the Stage Select, where Patrick and I take turns coming up with random gaming related topics that we all talk about and encourage all the listeners to join in.
It's crazy.
Second segment is Consumption Junction, where we just talk about all the media that we've consumed, in the last couple weeks. And I'm going to go ahead and announce it now, but it's not going to come out for a little bit. New segment coming in 2019, Video Game Cage Match. Please look forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And another interactive one with our listeners. So please look forward to all of that. We got a lot of big things coming for you in 2019. We're going to start doing contests with giveaways, trying to get some bigger guests next year.
Well, not bigger than this, but...
Yeah, well... This is our biggest guest so far, so thank you, Ryan Scott.
Hey man, you say you're not as big as the Geekbox, but you sound far more ambitious than I am. Contest? Jeez.
It's not for lack of trying, it's for lack of marketing.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for this episode of Nerds Without Pants. So you can find us all on the Twitter. Almost forgot that part. Patrick.
At some boss.
Ryan.
Rydog.
You can find me at Julian_Titus, and you can find Nerds Without Pants at NWPcast. So for myself, Patrick, and a very special thanks to Ryan, thanks for listening, and keep it pantsless, Internet. Goodbye.